What is up, YouTube? I am Eric and you are watching Retro Video Game Pickups. In this video, we are talking about physical versus digital games. Which is better? I want to tell you about the pros and cons that I think about. So if you like games, consoles, or product reviews, please consider subscribing and hitting that bell notification. With that being said, let's hop into it. Okay, so here we are. It is 2020 and there is a big battle going on, or a big war, whatever you want to call it. Physical games versus digital games, and everyone has their own opinion and you're allowed to think what you want, and people are arguing about it. People think one is going away, others think the other is pointless. So I'm going to talk about both sides and the pros and cons of physical and digital games. And I know a lot of people like to talk about this, but this is something I've kind of been thinking about a little bit, and it's really been something I wanted to talk about, and so here we are, we're talking about it. First off, the disclaimer is I am biased to physical games. You guys can tell behind me, I've got a ton of physical games and I love them. Now, a few reasons I have physical games is because, one, the servers can't be turned off, which means as long as my console and the disc play, I can be able to sit down and play it whenever I want to. Next is the way it looks. It feels, it smells when you crack open a brand new game. All that stuff is very awesome. When I can look at it on the shelf and just browse and all that, that is wonders. I can go out and find them used, which means they're cheaper, and all that as well. I love going out and finding used games. You guys know this channel is about that, so I want to bring that up as well. But there is a difference. Digital games are definitely different because you don't have to have a bunch of room. You have to have a bunch of space on your console, but you don't have to have physical room. Like, I have a wall of games. I could have all of those games on like 3 or 4 hard drives and be good. But that's not what this is about. Digital games, yes, you can normally get them earlier on the day of release. If you're on the West Coast and the game releases at midnight on the East Coast, you can usually get it at 9 p.m. If the game is a digital, you can always go and get it and pre-download it and then play it whenever it releases as well. So there's a few things. Also, people like to talk about digital games and how it gives more to the companies that make it, the creators and all that stuff, the coders and the writers, the creative people, the artists, all that stuff. So I want to talk about this a little bit, going more in depth on all of those topics. Now, first off, the physical games. You can get them, you can play them. You're not worried if that company decides to turn off Xbox 360 Live, because then you won't have those games. Or PS2, not PS2, PS3, and more stuff like that. You're not worried about losing games, unless you physically lose it. But you can physically walk up to any game on my shelf and pick it up and go to the console it works with and play it right then and there. You don't have to get online, you don't have to wait for it to download. You just turn on the console after you've hooked it up to the TV, and then you are very good to go. Also, you miss out on some of the physical stuff when you get digital. You don't get cool graphics to sit on your shelf. Now, people talk about that all the time, and I'm very much a fan of collecting, but I also like to play these games. So what does that mean? There are some killer games with some crazy box art, or just art in general, whether it's the manual or the map that comes with it, stuff like that. You miss out on that when you get digital games. You don't get that physical stuff, and I think that is one thing that is good for physical collecting. For my purposes, I love all the retro games. I love them, you guys know that. And I love being able to pick them up, look at them, and check it out, and see if I even want to play it, honestly. I might be confused about what I want to play because, well, there's too many games here, and maybe I'll be going through and I'll flip it and I'll see a game and I'll look at the art and I'll say, man, that looks like fun today, I'll play that. So that is a big thing for me. Drawing it in, being able to open up that game for the first time is totally awesome. The next thing I want to talk about is used games. I pick up a ton of games at the thrift store or at Goodwill, Salvation Army, Gamestop sometimes, not always, and local game stores. And so used sales are a big way that I pick up games. There's a ton of games coming out, and you never have time to play them all. Or at least I don't. You might, but I never have time to play all the games that I want to. So what does that mean? That means I miss out on games when they release. I don't play them when they come out, and so I don't want to spend the $60 or whatever the game costs. And so that's where used games come in. I can go and find these games at Goodwill, at Salvation Army, a thrift store, a pawn shop, a flea market, any of that stuff for drastically less money than it costs to go and buy them brand new. Which is one thing you can't do on the digital side. You cannot go and buy games for used prices, which sucks. And the problem is another thing that comes along with that is if I buy a game for $60 and I don't like it, I can go and trade it into GameStop, trade it into a local game store. I can even sell it myself, whether it's Mercari, eBay, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, wherever you want to sell games, I can do that. I can pick the game up, play it, test it out, figure out I don't like it. I don't have to return it to where I bought it. I can sell it myself and be able to make money off of that. Maybe make some money, maybe lose some money. It depends on how much I paid for it. But that's a very real thing, is I can find a game and resell it and recoup some of my costs, if not make more. So like going out for me, you guys know I love going to like thrift stores and all that stuff. I've talked about it a bunch on this channel, and that's how I make some of my money to fund the games, is finding games for cheaper than what they're worth and flipping them and reselling them. That's not a bad thing. All of my stuff is good deals and all that, so it's always well worth it for me to find games used. So going back to the digital side, digital is a whole new thing that wasn't even thought about 10 years ago. A lot of people think that games are going to move from physical to digital, and you can see that. Some of the things are going purely indie games. You can make an indie game and put it on a platform and not have to ever physically make the game on a disc or a cartridge, never have to make the box art, all that stuff. So that's one thing that digital works well is indie games, and I love playing indie games, and so digital works well for that, and I'm glad about that. Now, the other thing about digital is the games, some of these games on the Xbox One, the PS4, and even the Switch are huge games. And so what does that mean? That means you need to have a huge hard drive and really good internet. And internet is hard for some people, but it's better for others. Now, if you are talking about living in a major city, you're gonna get good internet. But if you live out in the boonies, out in the middle of nowhere, and you like to play games, you don't wanna wait 5 days for a game to download. And that's the thing that I don't like about digital games, is how long they take to actually download, because these games are huge and so massive and immersive and all that stuff. So digital games are great. I have digital games, if it's a Switch game and I can go on the eShop, pick it up, download it, and play it. It depends on what it is. I may pick it up physically, I may get it digitally, that just depends on what it is, honestly. Now, a lot of those indie games, like I talked about, didn't have a physical release, so digital is the way to go. But another thing, people like to talk about how games have been at $60 for 10 plus years, and they're not rising, which is a great thing. I love seeing games not inflate in value. So digital games are a good place for those publishers and developers to really put out the game that they want and not have to put up so much money and lose money by making physical games. If they could sell it for $60 here or $60 here, digitally is going to be the way to go. It's cheaper for them to make that, and it's even more profit. So that's the thing that I'm very fearful of, is that these game developers are going to take all their physical games and only do digital, which I think would be bad. Now, it would definitely hurt a place like GameStop, but what would it mean for the gamer like me? Well, those major releases, I couldn't get a physical release. I can't put them on the shelves. I can't go walk up and grab them and play them anytime I want. Now, the thing is digital games are awesome. Physical games are awesome. I think it just depends on how you play games and kind of what you think about them. Now for me, you guys know I love those old games, those old consoles, and so that's a physical need for me. Now, some of those games you could get on the Wii U Virtual Console and other virtual consoles, whether it's the 3DS one, not the Switch because they don't have it, but you can get some of those games, but you can't get all of them. Now, I know people have digitally downloaded them and created ROMs, which is illegal, but for me, I try to stick on the side of getting games, getting cartridges, and playing them on the original systems, on a CRT TV like the one I have back here, and all that cool stuff. So with that being said, all of this, I laid out some things for you guys to decide. I really want to know what you think. I prefer digital games sometimes, but for the most part, I prefer physical games. Let's be honest here. You guys can see behind me. I have probably 50 to 100 digital games. I have way more physical ones. So that just talks about where I'm coming from, and that's kind of why I brought this to your guys' attention. I want to know what you think. Comment down below and let me know, physical or digital games, and tell me why. What matters to you, and let's get this conversation going. So with that being said, I want to say thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you hit that bell notification because it lets you know when I post more video game related content, which is every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. I love making videos for you guys, so I'm thankful that you're watching, and I'm going to continue to make better videos and continue to get better every video I do. So thank you so much for watching, and make sure you have a good day.